Welcome back. A new article from the American Banker argues that a new directive from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau could signal how the federal government intends to intervene in consumer interests. The new directive scrutinizes digital intermediaries, those who act as the middleman between multiple sellers and multiple buyers. The current model involves prioritizing financial products based on compensation, and the CFPB says this model is not in consumers' best interests. So why is that judgment call a dangerous one? Joining us live now to discuss, contributor to the American Banker and president of the Southwest Public Policy Institute, Patrick Brenner. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Michelle. I appreciate it.
Of course. Tell us a little bit about why this report matters so much.
Sure. Well, Michelle, what is happening here is the CFPB is targeting the digital intermediaries of the consumer lending and consumer finance sector, alternative financial services. And what that means is the CFPB is targeting something like Expedia. Everybody uses Expedia to shop for airline fares instead of going directly to the airline itself. And what the CFPB is doing is actually targeting the digital intermediaries directly. That's like the CFPB targeting Expedia directly. And that's dangerous because it eliminates the ability for consumers to shop and compare different financial services products directly using these digital intermediary products and shopping websites.
So these digital intermediaries, wow, big word there, huh? It would be like Expedia or something similar to that, just completely defeating the idea of capitalism and competition.
Sure. Absolutely. Now, what the CFPB is doing is actually targeting the digital intermediaries directly. We feel as though that they're doing that in order to supplant itself as the future of the digital intermediary in the financial services sector. The CFPB wants to be the Expedia of financial services, and that's hugely dangerous. That's like China and everything that we've got coming out of China, where China is controlling the flow of customers at every aspect. You've got government centralized control, and that's the same thing that's going to be occurring here if we let the CFPB continue on this path. Is the CFPB is going to be controlling the flow of customers in the financial services sector. And when that happens, the CFPB gets to leverage tremendous authority over the providers of loan products and other financial services in the marketplace, forcing those loan providers into positions where they have to comply with certain other CFPB rules, including data sharing. And if you go back to July of last year, we cut our teeth, the Southwest Public Policy Institute, in targeting the CFPB for exposing consumer data to the dark web. Do we really want the CFPB controlling additional data points of consumers in the United States? Absolutely not, Michelle.
So, Patrick, what would happen if these providers don't comply?
Well, the CFPB has the authority to issue tremendous amounts of fines and regulate the consumer financial services sector. And that's incredibly dangerous in that the CFPB could effectively shut down loan providers and other operators in this space. They have a tremendous amount of authority under the single directorship structure that exists at the CFPB with Rohit Chopra at the head of the agency.
I do want to know, how should consumers best protect their interests?
That is a great question, Michelle, and I don't quite have an answer for you. This latest circular is so incredibly dangerous to consumer interests. And the problem here is, and what we've tested ourselves at the Southwest Public Policy Institute, is that there is real minimal recourse for consumers as far as holding the CFPB accountable because of its current structure. Congress needs to rein in the CFPB and really cut back on the agency itself. And we're in favor of abolishing the CFPB in its entirety.
Just curious, I'm not sure if you've done any outside polling about if anyone else is in favor of this, or how do those numbers break down, just out of curiosity?
Michelle, I don't have an answer to that question. We haven't done any polling on public interest associated with whether or not the CFPB goes away at this time.
Well, you know what? I don't think a lot of people know about this in general, and that's probably why it would be helpful. And hopefully this segment helps as well, because this is definitely something that you don't hear about, but it's so important. I mean, how could this relate to fears about a social credit score system?
I'm so glad that you brought that up. This is the precursor to the social credit score system. If the government is controlling the flow, the pipeline of consumers in the consumer lending space, imagine the type of control that they can exert over loan operators and other financial services providers in this segment of this marketplace. If they're controlling the flow of consumers, they can control the actual providers and operators directly. I mean, we're talking about the CFPB essentially controlling the flow of customers to banks and credit unions and other traditional installment lenders in such a way that the CFPB is essentially controlling the entire marketplace. With that type of control, it's terrifying. This is the precursor to nationalized finance in the United States. This could see the end of privatized finance in the United States. This is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, you had a good word there. It is terrifying. Patrick, thank you so much for being on the show today and shining light on something as well that is extremely important. We're definitely going to have you back to chat more about this.
Thank you, Michelle. Of
course. Well, coming up after the break, we've been talking about it since it happened, and now we have even more updates from that Baltimore bridge collapse. Take a look at that. That's next here on America's Voice Live.